The Wisconsin village of Elkhart Lake is home to the world-famous Road America circuit and is a pilgrimage site for race fans of every stripe. With just 5 races remaining in the Fanatec GT World Challenge America powered by AWS season, it's time to set the grid for a pair of critical races that will go a long way toward deciding the season-long championship. Hello everyone, welcome to Road America. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. Deputizing for Amanda Busick this weekend, we'll have Shea Adam down in the pit lane, and Calvin cars are already on track to go qualifying for the first of 2 qualifying sessions, 2 races here this weekend. Track conditions, well, they are cool. Right now, though, the precipitation is holding off, but rain very much a storyline as we look forward to the first race of the weekend later today.
Yes, definitely a threat for this afternoon's green flag time, and certainly it's been a problem for these drivers and teams to really get set up for this weekend. It was a very damp session yesterday, so not a lot was learned in free practice 1. Free practice 2 was pretty dry, but some of the teams had a bit of drama then. So there's certain drivers, including Michael Dinan, who's aboard the SRO Motorsports BMW this weekend, who's done 0 laps, so he did test, so hopefully he can put that to work. But certainly some of these teams on the back foot here as they get set up for a very important qualifying session.
The good news for Dinan and company is they did get some running, and they are good to go today. Less fortunate, Justin Wetherill, he and Ryan Diao were set to contest a pair of races. Well, in the case of Wetherill, 2 races, 2 series this weekend between Fanatec GT and GT America. But a heavy crash yesterday, coupled with a crash in testing here a week ago, has left them out this weekend.
Yeah, he's really disappointed coming off a nice win at Nashville, of course, on the streets just a couple of weeks ago. So they're looking for big things here this weekend. Had a crash in testing, so they lost their backup chassis. Then he had a big one. It was actually in a GTA practice session late yesterday afternoon. Got involved with the GT4 car going down towards Canada corner. Massive impact at about 150 miles an hour is written off that chassis, so they will not see any participation here this weekend. So that's a shame for a team that was very much on the rise.
No question about that. They were showing that strength, as Calvin mentioned just a few weeks ago, in that GT America standalone race on the streets of Nashville, but they'll look to regroup ahead of the next couple of races on the season at Sebring in a few weeks' time. This, though, is Chandler Hull. Impressive young man for this team, this Bimmer World team that was good yesterday. Looking at the times from a couple of the practice sessions, they feature towards the top, including topping the charts in FP1.
Yeah, it's pretty wet, though, as you look at the times there. They are running like 22s or something. The dry time here yesterday, fastest time was the 2:05. So certainly Aublin put this car at the top of the time charts. Been struggling a little bit to get the front end working on these BMWs here, just trying to get the energy into these front Pirelli tires. We'll have to see how they match up in what is a pretty dry racetrack right now. You see, it's still a little damp offline, but this team, 5 podiums this year, knocking on the door for that first one. They want to get it done before the end of the season.
Let's talk about the racetrack. 14 turns. It's over 4 miles in length, easily the longest venue that we will go to over the course of the season, but every little bit of it is challenging. It is enjoyable from a driver's perspective. Teams, drivers, fans alike, everyone loves coming to Road America.
Oh, it's mega. It's such a treat to be here, Ryan, and we spent some time yesterday going around the circuit and looking at the cars from various viewing areas which the spectators can enjoy here at Road America. Tremendous facility. It's old school, brilliant vibe with Elkhart Lake, the village, as you mentioned earlier. We had a beautiful parade here with all of the cars coming through the little village on Thursday evening. So just a nice stage and setup for this race weekend. But this racetrack is extremely challenging. It's pretty high in tire degradation. It's pretty abrasive. Long track, over 4 miles, longest that we run on here in North America. And long straightaways. This is the stretch down towards turn 5, but you're going to reach speeds in excess of 160 miles an hour 3 times around this circuit. Big long stretches. The run from turn 14 up to turn 1, for example, is 4,400 feet. So it's a real dyno run as well for these engines, and trying to get some drag trimmed out of these race cars.
Let's talk about the format of the weekend. As mentioned, 2 races, 1 today, 1 tomorrow. 2 qualifying sessions that will run back-to-back right here. Q1, which is underway right now, this sets the grid for the first race. The race later on today. Q2 will set the grid for tomorrow. Now, for the bulk of the cars in this field, they run in the Pro-Am class. The majority of the cars do. And in Q1, by regulation, it is the less experienced driver that is doing the qualifying right here. So George Kurtz, who's paired with Colin Brown. George doing the qualifying for the first session. Then when we turn things over to the second driver in these lineups, that will be the pros in the Pro-Am lineups going up for Q2 to set the grid for race 2 later on in the weekend.
What a run George has been on there. He and Colin Brown come off that brilliant overall victory at Watkins Glen a few weeks ago. And he headed over to Spa, got a class win there. So been a brilliant month or so for George Kurtz. And he and Colin Brown done some testing here. They're really finding the sweet spot with that CrowdStrike entry, working with Riley Motorsports this year for the first time. And is really seeing some big dividends with that partnership.
No question about that. George on a high. We chatted with him briefly about that victory in class at the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa. He said it was just wonderful. Big smile on his face, of course. He'd been headed over there for the past few years to compete in that race, but got that breakthrough win with the SPS Automotive Performance team, and he's still riding that high for sure now. 3 or 4 weeks on. As we look here at Stephen Agakani, impressive young man, US Racetronics, the team. This team, they've been fast. The speed has not been the issue, but putting a full race weekend together has, and somehow, some way, they're still chasing their first win.
They are. It's just amazing. They've had so much pace this year. Stephen's done a great job, and I think Laura Spinelli has just been really a standout. I mean, just a revelation in terms of his pace this year. The team is knocking on the door. They just need to tidy up a few things. They've certainly got all the tools in the toolbox. It's just really making it happen on race day, and they need that little bit of racing luck as well.
Speaking of Spinelli, 4 qualifying sessions for him this season, 4 poles. That's how good he's been, and that's up against all of the great pros in the Pro-Am lineups and, of course, in the all-pro classes as well. So Spinelli truly a revelation here this weekend. Russell Ward, he and Philip Ellis, they've run a partial schedule here this year. Also have had some misfortune along the way, but had that big breakthrough here recently.
Yeah, won here a couple of weeks ago in a different championship, of course, and coming off a class win at Watkins Glen. But we spoke to the team yesterday, and Russell Ward was just trying to really manage things at Watkins Glen, try to slow it down so they didn't get into any tire issues like some of the other teams had, and basically got too much pickup on the car, on the tires, and lost pace at the end of the day and lost the overall win. So I think they're bitterly disappointed by that, so they continue to learn. But now we go on board with him down into turn 3. Slow corners, but they're long duration corners, Ryan. You're really into these slow corners for a long, long time. That means the balance on the car is so critical to get the lap time out of this Mercedes.
You mentioned it earlier, tire drag, a huge talking point here this weekend. And part of that is much of the pavement around this track has been here for quite some time. It's worn out. It chews up any tire that comes to this place, but that's all set to change. This is the last time we'll see these cars on this track surface. Road America is set for a big repave coming up in just a few months.
Yeah, it could be mega if they get any grip into this racetrack around 4 miles. Could this then be the fastest track in North America? CTMP up north of the border tends to have the little edge right now with their resurfacing there in recent years, but certainly if they resurface this with a track that gives you a ton of grip and take out some of the bumps, it should relate to really phenomenal lap times.
It's Misha Goinkberg, K-Pax Racing, the team. K-Pax also had a trip across the pond over to contest the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa with an all-pro lineup. Looked set to start that race on pole, then there was a technical issue found by the stewards, and there's a whole backstory to that probably isn't worth chewing on right now. But nevertheless, that team was really, really fast, raced their way forward, had a couple of issues really out of their control over the course of that race. But K-Pax representing the North American Championship very, very well against one of the stiffest GT3 fields you will find anywhere on the planet.
Well, I think that's a huge statement. I mean, yes, there's a technical infraction after quali, which meant that they didn't start from the pole position, but I don't think it gave them the pace to get the pole. But in terms of that team, they are top-notch. They can compete at any level, even on the global stage.
All right, getting deeper into this qualifying session, let's take stock of where things stand. Russell Ward just moments ago jumped to the top with a purple middle sector, fastest of all through that middle portion of the track. Did not have the best third sector, so there is theoretically some time out there. But Calvin, I do wonder, with tire drag being what it is here, a lot of drivers telling us you get maybe 2 laps, a lap and a half of peak grip before it starts to fall off. How important is it to go out, set down that flyer early, and not have to try and push on compromised tires deeper into this session.
I think it's very important because you've got to balance that with taking some edge out of these tires that you're going to have to use in terms of your allotment for the races this weekend. So if that was me, I'd be setting the car up on light fuel and just really go for it. Try and bang out a lap, and if you get the pole, great. If you're not, don't worry about it. It's a big track. There's lots of overtaking opportunities. Don't really destroy your race strategy over trying to get a little bit more pace here in this quali session.
Very interesting as we look at the standings. We were told Mercedes, look out for them. They ought to be strong. Well, 2 in the top 2 spots. Traditionally, this has been a good place for the BMW. Going back to the M6 platform, the M4 reasonably quick here in IMSA competition a couple of weeks ago, and another one that we think could be strong. And look at that, Chandler Hull, 3rd overall for Bimmerworld and fastest in the Pro-Am class.
Yeah, that's really impressive. I think Chandler's really stepped up. Oh, that was a huge moment there for Beretta coming out of Canada corner. Just dropped those outside wheels there. Rough ride, and he bails out of this lap, it looks like.
Now, it wasn't a great lap to begin with, so any hope of improving really went away with that bobble. We'll see if he stays on it. It looks like he will, coming up the hill to try at least one more time. This is the car that has dominated the championship. Andrea Caldarelli has been a part of the lineup all season. There was that swap in drivers due to a regulation change after the first round at Sebring that saw Beretta slide over into this car and send Jordan Pepper over to the sister car he shares with Goikberg. Now, you saw Beretta get wide there in turn 1 up over the curbs. That's something that the stewards will see. This lap should not count. That was 4 wheels outside of what has been deemed the track limits at Road America.
Yeah, you got the white stripe that kind of edges the circuit, but when you come through certain corners like turn 1, turn 5, turn 12, there's the perpendicular hash marks. As long as one tire is touching those, you're good. He was way out of bounds. I think he needs to bail on this lap. I mean, he's only got 2 minutes to play with, but I'd certainly baby those tires if he wants to try and do a last lap flight, because this one will not count.
Ashton Harrison in the Racer's Edge car, down the order further than I think either of us would have anticipated. Back in 12th, just behind the other Acura NSX GT3 in the field, Aaron Vogel for the hometown real-time racing team. 11th and 12th overall right now, 5th and 6th in Pro-Am in a package with this NSX that has had some good success at this track in the past.
It really has. Real-time racing won there. It was their 100th victory in terms of the team's history here back in 2019 with Dane Cameron and Mike Hedlund on board. So it's been a sweet place for them to really be on their home turf and get the wins. And certainly this Racer's Edge team has seemed to have the upper hand on the real-time entry this year in terms of pace, but they've been working hard. The real-time team have done a ton of testing, trying to sort things out, and see who has the upper hand as we now see Aaron Vogel out for a nice run, 5th in class right now. He's going to bail on this qualifying session and park the race car and turn it over to Michael Cooper and see what he can come up with in the second session here.
Top 3 already in the pits, and you could see a number of drivers. That's Laura Spinelli there, limbering up, getting ready for the run in Q2 that's coming up in just a few moments. Doesn't look like any changes really are in the offing deep into this qualifying session.
Spoke to this team yesterday, Windward, and they got a brand new motor put on board, and they were a little bit concerned about the oil pressure that they were seeing, but had the Mercedes AMG technical guys over there yesterday working it out, and they felt they were going to be okay, but certainly a little bit of consternation in the camp after the first practice session yesterday.
Shaping up to be the first pole of the season for Russell Ward. Again, they've only run the 4 races this year, the first 2 at Sonoma, and then most recently at Watkins Glen, where they had a 3rd as well as a class win in those 2 races. Goikberg here actually is on a bit of a lap. First sector is a personal best. Right now he's down in 4th.
If he can find a couple of tenths, he can jump up to 3rd, maybe a leapfrog around the Pro-Am pole sitter of Chandler Hull. Don't think he's got enough pace to get to Agakani or the front row, but let's see if he can finish it off here.
This is Hurry Downs. Next to this left-hander, and then under that Speedville Bridge into this long duration right-handed corner known as the carousel.
Yeah, this is a corner you really play chicken with. You want to get on the power, but it just keeps coming at you, falls away, little off camber. Doesn't give you anything as you're asking for more. The track is taken away from you at the same time.
That's the king.
It was tidy.
It was.
This is where Sector 2 should be completed. Oh, he drops a bunch there, unfortunately.
Doesn't look like this is going to be a lap that Goikhberg can improve. That first sector, though, impressive on older tires. One of just a handful of cars still out on the track right now. Looks like BERETTA is still running. Looks like Smithson is out there, Harrison and Kyle Washington. He and James Safronis are making their debut in the championship this season. Goikhberg's going to go ahead and finish up the lap.
I thought he was going to bail and hit pit lane. Maybe he's so predictive that looks good. See what he comes up with. Oh, that was so close.
Yep.
He was only about 400ths off his fastest, so good third sector. That was that middle sector that really hurt him.
Still, 4th overall, 3rd in pro. Russell Ward set to take the pole overall. Stephen Agakani making it a Mercedes-AMG sweep of the front row. Chandler Hull on the Pro-Am pole as they run. This is the GMG racing car I mentioned earlier. Kyle Washington, James Safronis joining the championship for the weekend in the Am class, running up against the Triarsi Competizione machine. Charlie Scardina qualified impressively once again, 6th overall. We've seen that from Charlie a few times this year. When he's on, he is as good as they come in this first qualifying group.
Yeah, he's bullet fast. Scardina is certainly. Getting back to Goikhberg's lap, I don't think he totally committed through 14. I think he was thinking, I'm coming to the pit lane. He must have looked at the predictive, kept going. I wonder if that cost him a 10th or two.
Nevertheless, a decent starting position for the Canadian. Russell Ward and Ellis, as mentioned, on pole by 0.2 of a second over Agakani. Pole on the class pole for Pro-Am. Then you get to Goikhberg and BERETTA, the two K-Pax cars set to start 4th and 5th. Scardina on the Am class pole in 6th overall. Then you find the Turner car of Dynan, who turned his first laps of the weekend just a moment ago in that session. He is 7th. Kurtz, Luck, and Smithson rounding out the top 5. Really tight, though, in the middle of this pack. Should make for an interesting race a little bit later on today. Why don't we head down to the pit lane and hear from our pole sitter, Russell Ward.
Season's trending in the right direction for Russell Ward, coming off of 3 consecutive podium finishes in this series. Russell, first pole, that's the perfect place to start, especially with rain in the forecast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I love this track. The Mercedes-AMG GT3 loves this track, and so, you know, it's been good to us this year, and hopefully we can, you know, carry the momentum and, you know, get another win under our belts here at Road America.
Now, when you got out of the car, you had Philip come over to you and talk to him a bit. What advice were you giving him about how to go quickly?
Yeah, just giving him kind of a general rundown. You know, these new tires, when you put them on, you've only got a couple of laps, so like what was the warm-up like and what he can expect out of the car, and also just the track conditions. It's dry and the track's really fast, but there are some spots out there that you should watch out, and some dirt on the track and stuff like that. So just giving him as much information as he can, because if you can get a good lap on your first flying lap, that's where the most speed is. So you know, the more information for him, the better. You know, so you can go out there and have the confidence to push right away.
Congrats on this first pole. Good luck getting your 2nd consecutive win.
Awesome. Thank you, Shay. Cheers.
That is Russell Ward, the 2020-2021 Mercedes-AMG Customer Pro GT3 Driver of the Year. Had a huge program, it has, for the past several years. That whole Windward team remarkably busy on both sides of the pond, and that continues here in 2022.
I love the attitude within the group. I mean, they've had some major disappointments this summer with victories that have gotten away from them in various championships, but they just focus forward. They just take it in their stride. They don't get too down and just really focus on the next event. That's a great pole position for Russell here, as Shay alluded to, his first, and really big lap there.
What do you make of the relative struggles from K-Pax? Traditionally, we've seen them as the dominant team for the past several seasons. Certainly in Q1, that's where they've been incredibly strong over the course of the season, and yet they find both cars further down the order than we've come to expect.
Yeah, we've seen on a few occasions where they look vulnerable, but somehow through execution and just their driver pairing, how it matches up with the other driver pairings in the pro class, they seem to somehow get it done. But they're coming off their first drought of a weekend in terms of not getting a victory at the last rounds at Watkins Glen. And today, similar deal. I think BERETTA will be disappointed with his run. I thought Goku's run was very good, but BERETTA had that bobble in in Canada on the previous lap. Then he exceeded track limits in turn 1, so I'm sure he'll be ruining the fact he probably didn't maximize, even though he wasn't a threat for pole, I don't think. Could have probably been a little bit more towards the front.
Well, we'll see how that plays out. Still a lot of racing to go this weekend. 90-minute races with the driver change pit stop right in the middle. 2 of those to come at Road America. On board here, it's the BMW M onboard camera, the Turner BMW. We saw Michael Dinan in this car earlier, talked about the issues that they had already this weekend that has prevented Michael from turning a lap hardly until qualifying here today. Now the co-drivers in these cars, Robbie Foley, who's been working with Michael for so many years, first in GT4 racing, and now in year 2 in GT3. What a good pairing they've made, and this BMW M4 package should be capable here at Road America.
Yeah, and he's antsy. You can see Robbie Foley wants to clear Jan Halen here and get going, so he's got to try and figure this out. Do I bail and try and find some better space? And this he does, and now he's got Michael Cooper right behind him. So, and I think the real problem with this is you think, oh, you got 15 minutes to play with. It's the tires. You can't really afford to take the speed spot out of these and not get that clear lap, particularly if you're set up for a short sprint here and not really looking to utilize the full 15 minutes.
This is Michael Cooper, Real-Time Racing, the team based just down the road in Milwaukee. You can see on the front of that car a lot of signatures, as is tradition for Real-Time, allowing race fans to adorn the race car with their names. They did that at the parade we talked about earlier back on Thursday. A lot of fans cheering for this car here this weekend.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a head scratcher for this whole group, and they've been working hard. Their engineering squad has really been thrown everything at this race car in terms of trying to find the pace. They did a shakedown with this car prior to Watkins Glen and had good pace. They did a 2-day test recently and had good pace, but then yesterday suddenly they're like, just don't have the ultimate pace again. It looks like the car is good in race trim, but qualifying is really what they're looking for here. See if Mike can get this car towards the sharp end of the field.
On board with Michael Cooper, the New York native. Had a big test here recently in preparation for this weekend. Now to Loris Spinelli. We talked about his streak of poles, undefeated in Q2 this season. I mentioned earlier we expect K-Pax to be good in Q1. Well, they had been on pole in Q1 overall every single race this year until just moments ago. And now maybe we'll see. Could another streak be in jeopardy? Based on Q1, I think this car still very well could be one to keep an eye on, especially with Spinelli driving.
Yeah, he looked pretty tidy through there. The car's really carving the corner very nicely. Mercedes just looks so settled, it's so compliant, has good downforce, good into these brake zones, particularly the little bumps that you have there down into Canada corner. Look how it rides that, just flattening those out. Little porpoising as you come into the brake zone, which is really sets up the whole corner, it sets up your lap time. If you have problems on the brake pedal, well, that's just going to transfer all the way through the corner in terms of the pace and the sector time.
Around turn 14 and up this big hill. This is one of the few hills at a racetrack that I think television maybe does do it justice. It does look like a massive climb, but from the cockpit, even more so. And how about that first lap from Spinelli at 2:03.3? That is huge.
Wow. That is putting it down.
Best second sector, best third sector so far belong to Spinelli. Mario Farnbacher, though, in this car, has a purple first sector and just reset it a moment ago. Look at that car lunge on corner entry into the kink there. Mario Farnbacher flying around. Bill Oberlin, though, just went purple in sector 1.
Yeah, this is where the pros really earn their money in terms of grabbing one of these race cars by the scruff of the neck when the grip is at its best and just laying it down.
Spinelli, Oberlin, Halen, Foley, Triarci, the order for the moment, but that is very much subject to change with just under 10 minutes to go in the qualifying session. Farnbacher with a great first sector, personal best in sector 2, but it did drop off considerably compared to Spinelli, who has just turned in a purple first sector of his own.
See where Mario comes across the stripe, jumps to second. About 3/4 of a second off that fast lap by Spinelli.
Puts it into perspective, doesn't it? And Spinelli, as mentioned, has gone faster in the first sector. This is the fearsome kink. You hear about it. It's mythologized in so many ways, but it lives up to the billing when you're in the race car, right, Cal?
It really does. It comes at you in a hurry, and particularly as the tires start to degrade a little bit. You know, it's going to be feeling really good in this first lap or two, but then you just got to really put on your brave boy pants if you want to get through there.
Here he comes, purple in the first 2 sectors. Look at that, he's a full ½ second quicker than he went the first time around.
Big commitment there. I thought he lost the front end just a little bit as he turned into that final corner, but still looks like a cracker of a lap here.
Spinelli to the line, let's check the time, and at 2:02.8. He's up by a full second over Philip Ellis.
Yeah, and you can see there, that third sector was not his best. I think he overcommitted to it. Maybe the tires just starting to lose their sweet spot a little bit. Just a momentary pause there before he get the car turned in. I think he's bailing on this, cool him down, see if they'll come back to him.
Colin Brown just had a lap invalidated a moment ago, going wide at the exit of turn number 1. That's really the one spot at the driver's meeting that the stewards said they were going to be keeping a close eye on. That's the one corner they felt like if you exceeded the track limits, it really gave an advantage.
Yeah, there's other areas like turn 8 that we just saw Philip Ellis come through, turn 5 and turn 12, but it's so bumpy out there and you're taking a long way around the corner. But as you said, turn 1 is the one they're going to really please.
This is a good lap shaping up here for Ellis. He's just over a 10th off in sector 1, gave up a few more tenths to Spinelli's time in sector 2, but that would still easily set him up to be the second quickest in this session by quite a margin over Farnbacher.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a Mercedes sweep of that front row, but I think he's still going to be at least ½ a second off of Spinelli's time. See there, car a little bit loose there. You can see the front wheels kind of pointing left instead of right there, right at the mid part of the corner.
Dirk Moeller moments ago just jumped up to 8th. Here is Ellis. It is a good lap, a 2:03.4, but it's still over ½ a second shy of what we saw from Loris Spinelli on his flyer.
Yeah, let's see if the DXDT boys can step up here. Brian Sellers was the fastest in the dry practice session here yesterday, but right now down in 7th. Dirk Mueller, his teammate right behind him, lines up 8th currently.
This is the Riley Motorsports crew. George Kurtz qualified this car in Q1. Colin Brown had that lap invalidated a few moments ago, pushing awfully wide there in the run into Hurry Downs. Now heavy on the brakes for this left-hander.
And you're just kicking yourself when you do that because you got 4 miles to basically pause and reset and go again. So you're really eating up the clock at the same time. Oh, he's loose. That was a big, big moment there for Colin Brown.
Have to check the stopwatch and see just how much it cost him. But the other thing that hurts, you have that lap invalidated. That's probably when the tires are at their peak and you effectively waste that lap away. That definitely hurts. And look at that, he gave up
that was
a second and a half.
That was a big slide. He'll be checking other things as well after that moment.
Now he knows this Mercedes is capable. Just look at the top 2 with Spinelli and Ellis. Farnbacher again, as has been the case for much of this season, continues to show the way in the Pro-Am ranks. Jordan Pepper in the top of the 2 Lamborghinis from K-Pax. He's back in 4th, 3rd in Pro, and Caldarelli
11th overall. And that's where it'll line up. Doesn't matter that he's 5th in the Pro class. You stack up on times here.
Spinelli in the pits, and there'll be a little advantage to that. If you think you've got a good lap, go ahead and park it because you're going to need to use these qualifying tires in the race, and if they have a little bit extra life in them, that could give you an advantage during the stint that you elect to utilize these qualifying tires.
Mueller across the line. It's not improved, so I think that was a cool down lap and a reset lap to maybe get something done here. He's had a lot of success here with the Ford GT program over the years. Sat on the pole a couple of times, I believe. He and Joey Hand also won in that former competition as well, so he loves this circuit.
Caldarelli had a good middle sector. Ooh, wow.
Divot up there. He's still got a bit of time to work with, but
Does he have the tire to work with?
Yeah.
Cooper had a good first sector, but dropped off in the middle.
Orbler third in Pro-Am, 204.2. Farnbacher on the Pro-Am pole at a 204 flat, so they'll get a little reset here, find some life in these Pirelli tires here to the fuel burn occurs during this session. The car gets a little bit lighter, but then you're typically fighting the tires going in the opposite direction in terms of performance.
Interesting that Spinelli has come back out with the pole pretty well in hand, a 0.6 of a second advantage. No one really improving appreciably, but he does head back out with under 4 minutes to go in the session. Cooper had a decent lap that last time by, but is still stuck down in 12th.
I think for Spinelli, I mean, one thing you have to do if you feel maybe you didn't maximize your lap and you feel you're going to be threatened and you really want to grab that pole position, just be out there. You can't really respond by sitting on pit lane and then sending him, because it's going to be over 2 minutes before you get around to start that lap. So just be out there circulating in case you want to try and respond. Cooper right on edge there through turn 6. When we were going around the circuit yesterday, we sat in this spot for a little bit, Ryan, and really, I mean, I've raced this circuit many times, but I'd forgotten how much downhill the run is. Certainly we know from 7 down to 8 into the corner he's in right now, but from 6 to 7, you're really tipping it downhill, a little bit off camber. That's why 7 is such a tricky corner to get through cleanly.
It's a fast corner too, high commitment when you turn in. Similar to the Kink, of course, right here. We've seen it go wrong in a big way for a few people here already this weekend.
So quick. He touched about 165 3 times around this circuit, right here into the brake zone.
Is the famed Canada corner. This is now up the hill, Billy Mitchell Bend. Turn 13, another great place to watch from trackside. Tails away up that hill. Shows you the amount of speed one of these GT3 cars is carrying on a push lap. Let's see what Michael's got. Has not had a great lap to this point, and he comes to the line here. No improvement for Michael Cooper, still stuck down in 12th.
Yep. Let's see if he's got anything left. Time for one more lap before he's going to see that checkered flag. Wobbling out there, just cruising, it sounds like.
Just about everyone sitting in the pits. It looks like it's going to be a perfect 5 for 5 in Q2 for Loris Spinelli. So successful in Lamborghini Super Trofeo racing. Does have some experience in this Mercedes platform racing in Europe and various championships there.
So it's a sweep of the front row for the 2 Mercedes, the 6 and the 33, but in reverse order from what we saw from the earlier session.
Well, that could make for an interesting race if one has the edge over the other in one stint and then it's reversed in the next one. That is Stephen Agakani, qualified second for race 1. Big smile on that young man's face. His father Armand right there behind him over his shoulder. Great to see them smiling through all the frustrations they've had this year. The pace, as we've mentioned, has not been the issue. They have qualified well, they have run at the front, they have led races, but putting the full package together, could this finally be the long-awaited weekend?
Well, it has to come sooner or later, right? Because there's just too much pace, too much potential there. 2 excellent drivers, so they just need that. I mean, I think the team is now executing and firing on all cylinders. They just need that little bit of racing luck to get it done. See what the weather turns out to be this afternoon. That could be the big curveball for everyone.
That's a great point, because the forecast, if you're looking for a dry race at least, is ominous. For those that are a little bit further down the order, I think they're looking at that as a chance, an opportunity. Exactly. The rain being the great equalizer, and it's very likely it will come at some point. The question is, does that correspond with race time? Well, we'll find out in a few hours. But you look at this car, for instance, Porsche, renowned for being good in the wet. And it has not been as good of a weekend for Halen and Luck as we've seen in the past. Others like the NSXs, those traditionally have been good in the wet too, a little bit further down the order, at least in the case of the real-time car. Here's the results from Q2. Spinelli and Ellis on the front row for race 2 tomorrow. Farnbacher on the Pro-Am pole with Pepper alongside. Colin Brown completes the top 5. Bill Oberlin, Brian Sellers, Jan Halen, Dirk Muller, and Andrea Caldarelli all the way down in 10th. Then you find Robbie Foley and Michael Cooper back in row 6. The AM-class pole sitter, Onofrio Triarci in 13th. Drew Stavely, Corey Lewis, and James Sofronis completing the order. Back down to Shea.
Well, guys, we're not able to hear from our overall pole sitter because he's the one who has to take the car off to tech, but I did get an update for you. The reason that he went back out was because the pit lane timer wasn't working perfectly yesterday, and US Racetronics wants to make sure that this car is nothing but perfect. Nothing gets in the way of them winning their first race today, so they sent him back out for that one lap just to make sure that when they come in for the minimum pit stop time later on in the race, everything is all good.
Great note, Shay. Thank you so much for chasing that down. It does answer that question as we look at highlights from this qualifying session. Everyone jumping out on track as quickly as possible to make the most of their Pirelli P0s. Great to have the GMG squad back in action. MICHELE Oigbert, one of the stars of Q1, Calvin.
Yeah, he was, and his teammate Jordan Pepper lines up in a similar position from P4 for race 2 tomorrow.
This is the hometown real-time squad still looking for a little bit of pace despite a test here at this track going back to last week. Racer's Edge also spinning the NSX. And this is Loris Spinelli, a perfect 5 for 5 in qualifying. How good has he been this year?
Amazing, just tremendous pace. That was a mega lap. I mean, to have basically over half a second over Philip Ellis, who's a rock star in one of these Mercedes, that is quite the statement here today.
Well, it is dry now, but rain is in the forecast here at Elkhart Lake. I hope you join us for race 1 of the weekend. Later on today, 2 o'clock local time is when we'll come on air. Hope you join us for that. For Shay, for Cal, I'm Ryan. We'll see you then. So long from Road America.